The uninvited guest. It was just past midnight when Sam woke up to a strange noise in the apartment. At first, he thought it was just the old building settling again. But this sound was different. Sharp, metallic, and rhythmic, like someone tapping on a metal surface. He sat up in bed, his heart pounding. The air felt heavier, the shadows in the corners of his room darker than usual. Sam grabbed his phone and turned on the flashlight. He tiptoed towards the living room, each step quieter than the last. The sound grew louder, more deliberate. His pulse raced as he reached the corner and peered into the living room. What he saw froze him in place. In the middle of the room stood a large glass capsule. It hadn't been there yesterday. It was taller than him, with sleek, metallic edges glowing faintly blue. Inside the capsule, a figure moved. Sam swallowed hard. "What the hell?" he whispered to himself. The figure in the capsule was humanoid, but not entirely human. Its skin shimmered faintly, changing color from silver to deep blue depending on how the light hit it. Its eyes were closed, and strange markings glowed softly along its arms. Sam's first instinct was to run, but curiosity held him rooted to the spot. As he approached cautiously, the figure opened its eyes. They glowed with a soft green light, piercing and otherworldly. Sam stumbled back, his flashlight beam shaking. The figure tilted its head, as if studying him. Then it spoke, its voice clear and sharp, yet oddly melodic. "Let me out," it said, its gaze locked onto Sam. Sam's heart skipped a beat. "Nope, not happening," he stammered, holding up his hands defensively. "I don't even know who or what you are." The creature's expression hardened. "If you don't let me out, you'll regret it," it warned. The capsule vibrated slightly, as if responding to its occupant's emotions. Sam's mind raced. He recalled signing up for an experimental exchange program months ago, a desperate attempt to make some extra money. They'd been vague about the details, but this was way beyond anything he'd expected. "What do you mean, let you out? How did you even get here?" Sam asked, his voice trembling. The figure sighed, the glow in its eyes dimming slightly. "Your people captured me. I escaped. Sort of. This capsule was my prison, but it brought me here instead of taking me home." Sam blinked. None of this made sense. "Okay, so you're an alien." The figure rolled its eyes. "Obviously." Sam couldn't believe what he was hearing. He pinched himself, hoping to wake up from this bizarre dream. But the sharp sting on his arm confirmed this was real. Before he could say anything else, the lights in the apartment flickered. The air grew colder, and a strange hum filled the room. The alien's eyes darted around, its expression tense. "They're tracking me," it said. "We don't have much time." "Who's they?" Sam asked, his voice rising. "The people who locked me in here. If they find me, they'll take me. And probably you too," the alien explained, its voice urgent. "Now open this capsule." Sam hesitated. Letting it out seemed like a terrible idea, but keeping it trapped didn't feel much better. And if what it said was true, he didn't have long to decide. He glanced at the control panel on the capsule. The buttons glowed faintly, each marked with strange symbols he didn't recognize. "I don't even know how to open this thing," he said, panic creeping into his voice. "Press the red one," the alien said firmly. "And hurry." Sam hesitated for a moment longer before reluctantly pressing the red button. A soft hiss filled the room as the capsule's glass door slid open. The alien stepped out, stretching as if it had been cramped for a long time. Up close, it looked even more alien. Its skin shimmered like liquid metal, and its movements were graceful, almost too smooth to be human. It gave Sam a mischievous smile. "Thanks. I owe you one," it said. Sam took a step back. "Just don't kill me, okay?" The alien chuckled. "Relax. If I wanted to hurt you, I would have done it already." Before Sam could respond, the apartment shook violently. A loud bang echoed from the hallway, followed by heavy footsteps. The alien's expression darkened. "They're here," it said. "Stay behind me." "Wait, what do you mean, stay behind you?" Sam protested. But the alien was already moving, its hands glowing with a faint blue light. The door to the apartment burst open, revealing shadowy figures in black tactical gear. The alien raised one hand, and a wave of energy shot out, slamming the figures into the walls. Sam watched in stunned silence as the alien turned to him, its glowing eyes more intense than ever. "This is just the beginning," it said. "We need to go. Now." Sam stared at the destruction around him, his mind a whirlwind of fear and disbelief. Whatever he had gotten himself into, there was no turning back now. The alien's true nature. Sam sat on the edge of his battered couch, staring at the chaos around him. His once cozy apartment was now a disaster zone. Furniture overturned, scorch marks on the walls, and a faint hum of residual energy in the air. Across from him, the alien lounged casually, tossing a shiny coin-like object between her fingers. "So," Sam began, breaking the heavy silence, "are you going to tell me what just happened? Or should I just assume my life is over?" The alien smirked, her luminous green eyes sparkling with amusement. "Your life. You're fine. A little shaken, maybe, but alive. Trust me, that's a luxury." Sam blinked. "A luxury? You destroyed my apartment." She waved dismissively. "Oh, please, I saved your life. Those goons would have dragged you off for questioning, or worse, if I hadn't been here." "Yeah, about that," Sam said, his frustration boiling over. "Who are you? What were those guys after? And why the hell are you my problem now?" The alien flipped the coin one last time and caught it with a flourish. "Let's start with the basics," she said, leaning back. "I'm Kayla. I was a prisoner. Now I'm not. And as for why I'm your problem," she gestured around the room, "blame yourself. You signed up for this." "I signed up to host an exchange student." Sam shot back. "Not an alien fugitive." Kayla chuckled. "Well, surprise. I'm both." Sam groaned, running a hand through his hair. "This can't be happening. This can't be real." Kayla leaned forward, her expression suddenly serious. "Oh, it's real, Sam. And you're in it now. Those guys, they're part of an agency that doesn't play nice. They hunt people like me, beings with abilities they don't understand, and they'll do whatever it takes to get what they want." Sam frowned. "Abilities? You mean like what you did back there?" Kayla grinned, holding up her hand. A faint blue light flickered at her fingertips, then burst into a tiny glowing orb that hovered in the air. It's just the beginning." Sam stared, both fascinated and terrified. "You're saying they want to capture you for your powers?" Kayla nodded. "Among other things, humans love to study what they can't control. Your species has a real thing for dissecting mysteries. Literally." Sam shuddered. "Great, so now I'm harboring an alien with superpowers who's being hunted by a shadowy government agency. Fantastic." Kayla shrugged. "It's not all bad. I'm pretty fun once you get to know me." "Fun?" Sam repeated, incredulous. "You call this fun?" Kayla tilted her head, considering. "Well, maybe not fun, but it's definitely not boring." Before Sam could respond, a loud crash came from the kitchen. He jumped to his feet, heart racing. "What now?" Kayla remained seated, completely unfazed. "Relax. It's just your toaster." Sam frowned. "My toaster?" Kayla gestured toward the kitchen. "It's trying to figure out how to work again. I may have boosted it a little when I was dealing with those agents." Sam walked cautiously into the kitchen, where his toaster was indeed sparking and shaking on the counter. "What did you do to it?" he asked, horrified. "Gave it a little extra juice," Kayla said, grinning. "It might toast bread and make coffee now." "You're welcome." Sam stared at her in disbelief. "You're insane." Kayla stood and stretched, her shimmering skin catching the dim light. "Call it what you want. I'm alive, and so are you. That's what matters." Sam shook his head, muttering under his breath as he returned to the living room. "This is a nightmare." Kayla watched him with a hint of sympathy. "Look, I get it. You didn't sign up for this. But I'm here now, and you're the only person I can trust. Like it or not, we're in this together." Sam folded his arms. "Trust? You just got here. Why should I trust you?" Kayla's smile faded. For a moment, she looked almost vulnerable. "Because if you don't, you're as good as dead. Those agents won't stop, Sam. Not until they find me. And if they think you're helping me, even by accident, you're on their list too." Sam opened his mouth to argue but stopped. Deep down, he knew she was right. Whatever this was, it wasn't going away. He sighed heavily, sinking back onto the couch. "Fine," he said. "But if you're staying here, we need some rules." Kayla raised an eyebrow. "Rules?" "Yes, rules," Sam said firmly. "No more destroying my stuff. No more messing with my appliances. And no more dragging me into your alien problems." Kayla smirked. "You're cute when you're trying to act tough." Sam glared at her. "I'm serious." Sure, Kayla said, holding up her hands in mock surrender. "I'll behave. For now." Sam didn't trust her smile, but he didn't have much of a choice. "Great," he muttered. "This is my life now. Roommates with a chaotic alien." Kayla grinned. "And you're going to love every minute of it." But as the apartment lights flickered again and a faint hum echoed through the walls, Sam couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the calm before the storm. The chase begins. The streetlights cast a dim, flickering glow as Sam peered nervously out the apartment window. His building, usually quiet at this hour, was now alive with shadows moving against the walls. Kayla stood behind him, arms crossed, her shimmering skin dimmed to a neutral silver. "They're here," she said softly. Sam's stomach dropped. "You mean they? The ones you blasted out of here earlier?" Kayla didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stepped forward and looked out the window herself. A small smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. "Persistent, aren't they? Humans and their toys." "Toys?" Sam turned to her, panic evident in his voice. "Those toys are probably guns. What do we do?" Kayla didn't seem concerned. "We run." Sam blinked. "Run? That's your big plan." Kayla shot him a look that made him feel like a scolded child. "I saved your life once. If you want to keep it, do what I say. Grab whatever you need. Fast." He didn't need to be told twice. Sam darted around the room, grabbing his backpack, his wallet, and his phone. Kayla, meanwhile, was calmly inspecting the door, her glowing fingertips brushing against the wood. "What are you doing?" Sam whispered, glancing nervously toward the window. "Buying us time," Kayla replied. A faint blue line appeared on the doorframe, pulsing softly. "They'll have to work for it if they want to get in." Sam was about to ask what she meant when a low hum filled the air, growing louder by the second. He turned back to the window and saw a drone hovering outside, its metallic body reflecting the faint moonlight. Kayla," he said, pointing. "We've got company." She didn't even look. "That's not the problem." As if on cue, the door shuddered violently. A muffled voice called out from the other side. "Open up, or we're coming in." Sam's heart raced. "They're already here." Kayla finally turned, her expression calm but focused. "Stay behind me." Before Sam could argue, the door exploded inward, sending shards of wood flying. 3 figures in black tactical gear stormed in, weapons raised. The lead agent shouted, "Hands up. Step away from the alien." Kayla raised her hands, but not in surrender. Her palms glowed, and a ripple of energy surged forward, knocking the agents off their feet. Sam ducked instinctively, shielding his head as the coffee table was flung into the wall. "Go," Kayla yelled, grabbing his arm. They bolted out the back door, into the narrow alley behind the building. The cool night air hit Sam like a slap to the face, but he didn't stop running. Kayla led the way, moving with an almost inhuman grace despite the uneven ground. "Where are we going?" Sam panted. "Anywhere but here," Kayla shot back. "Just keep moving." Behind them, the hum of drones grew louder. Sam glanced over his shoulder and saw two machines closing in, their red lights scanning the alley. "They're right behind us," he shouted. Kayla skidded to a stop and turned, her eyes glowing brightly. "Keep running," she ordered. She raised her hands, and a pulse of energy shot out, slamming into the nearest drone. It spiraled out of control, crashing into a dumpster with a loud clang. Sam hesitated, but the look on her face made him reconsider. He turned and ran as fast as he could, the sound of crackling energy and metallic impacts echoing behind him. A moment later, Kayla was at his side again, looking a little winded but otherwise fine. "You're insane," Sam gasped. "Not insane," Kayla corrected. "Efficient." They emerged from the alley onto a quiet street. Kayla scanned their surroundings quickly. "This way," she said, leading him toward a darkened park. Sam followed, his mind racing. "Are we just going to keep running forever? What's the plan?" Kayla stopped abruptly, turning to face him. "The plan is to survive," she said, her voice steady but intense. "Those agents won't stop. Not tonight. Not ever. But if we can lose them for now, I can figure out our next move." Sam shook his head, trying to process everything. "Why me? Out of all the people in the world, why did you end up in my apartment?" Kayla hesitated, just for a moment. "Because you signed up for it," she said finally. "And because, whether you like it or not, you're part of this now." Sam opened his mouth to argue, but before he could say anything, a loud crack echoed through the park. He froze, his breath catching in his throat. What was that? Kayla's expression darkened. "They're here." The bushes nearby rustled, and more figures in black appeared, their weapons aimed directly at them. Kayla stepped forward, her glowing hands raised once more. "Stay close," she whispered, "and don't stop running until I tell you." Sam nodded, his heart pounding. This wasn't what he had signed up for, but it was too late to turn back now. Whatever came next, he would have to face it. By Kayla's side. Secrets and revelations. The abandoned warehouse smelled of rust and mildew, but it was quiet. For now, that was enough. Sam sat on a crate, his face pale, his breathing uneven. Kayla stood a few feet away, her glowing eyes dimmed to an almost human green. She seemed calm. Too calm, Sam thought, given everything they'd just been through. "You okay?" she asked, breaking the silence. Sam glared at her. "Do I look okay? I just got shot at by people who think I'm hiding some alien fugitive, which I guess I am. My apartment is trashed. I have no idea where we're going. And now we're hiding in the set of a bad spy movie. So no, I'm not okay." Kayla tilted her head, as if considering his words. "Fair, but you're alive, and that's more than I can say for most people who cross paths with those agents." Sam groaned, burying his face in his hands. "Why me? Out of all the people in the world, why did you end up in my apartment?" Kayla hesitated, her usual confident demeanor faltering. "That's complicated." Sam looked up sharply. "Try me." Kayla sighed, leaning against a rusted metal column. "Your name came up in the agency's files. They called you an asset. I didn't know what that meant until I got closer." "An asset?" Sam repeated, confused. "What does that even mean?" Kayla gave him a long, searching look. "I think you worked for them. Not directly, maybe not even knowingly. But you were involved somehow. They tracked me using your address. That's not a coincidence." Sam's stomach turned. "No, that's not possible. I'm a nobody. I work a dead-ended job. I binge stupid TV shows. I don't work for secret government agencies." Kayla raised an eyebrow. "Don't you?" Sam opened his mouth to protest but stopped. Flashes of strange moments from the past year flickered in his mind, odd gaps in his memory, unexplained bank deposits, a few routine medical tests he'd agreed to for extra cash. He shook his head, trying to push the thoughts away. "No," he said firmly. "There has to be a mistake." Kayla's gaze softened. "Maybe there is. Or maybe you don't remember. Either way, you're tangled in this now, and they'll stop at nothing to use you to get to me." Sam stood, pacing the dusty floor. "This doesn't make sense. None of this makes sense. Why would I? Why would they?" Kayla walked over, placing a hand on his shoulder. Her touch was oddly warm, grounding. "Breathe," she said quietly. "I know it's a lot, but I need you to stay with me. If we're going to survive this, I need you to focus." Sam exhaled shakily. "Okay. Fine. But you need to tell me the truth, all of it. Who are you really? And what do they want with you?" Kayla stepped back, crossing her arms. For the first time, she looked uncertain. "I'm not from here," she began slowly. "My people, my kind, have abilities. We're not all the same, but we're different. That scares your leaders. They see us as tools, as weapons. They want to understand us, control us, and if they can't do that—" She paused, her jaw tightening. "They destroy us." Sam frowned. "And you? What's your story?" Kayla hesitated again, then sighed. "I was part of a resistance. We tried to expose what your people were doing, experimenting on us, breaking intergalactic laws, risking entire planets for their research. We thought we could end it, but—" She trailed off, her gaze distant. "They caught me. I was their prisoner for years before I escaped." Sam stared at her, his mind spinning. "So you're some kind of alien freedom fighter?" Kayla snorted. "Don't make it sound so noble. I'm just trying to survive." Before Sam could respond, a faint beeping sound cut through the air. Kayla's eyes narrowed as she scanned the room. "They found us." Sam's heart skipped a beat. "What? How? We didn't leave any tracker," Kayla interrupted, pointing to his backpack. "It's on you." Sam quickly unzipped the bag, dumping its contents onto the floor. Among his wallet, phone, and charger, a small metallic disc tumbled out. Kayla snatched it up, her expression darkening. "They're smarter than I thought," she muttered, crushing the tracker in her hand. Sam's panic returned. "What do we do now?" Kayla tossed the broken tracker aside and grabbed his arm. "We keep moving. They'll be here in minutes." Sam resisted, pulling his arm back. "Wait. What's the point of running if they can find us anywhere? We need to do something. Fight back. Hide better. Something." Kayla turned to him, her glowing eyes fierce. "Fight back. Against them. Do you even know what they're capable of?" "No," Sam admitted, his voice trembling. "But I know I can't live like this. Running, hiding, waiting to get caught. I need to know the truth, Kayla. All of it." Kayla studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Fine. But if you want the truth, we're going to need help. And I know just the person to ask." Sam frowned. "Who?" Kayla's lips curved into a small, knowing smile. "Someone who used to work for them. Someone who hates them even more than I do." Before Sam could ask more, Kayla grabbed his hand and pulled him toward the exit. Whatever came next, Sam knew there was no turning back. This was his life now, caught in a war he barely understood, alongside an alien who was more than she seemed. The unexpected ally. The safe house wasn't much, just an old cabin on the edge of a dense forest, its windows boarded up, and its roof sagging under years of neglect. Sam wasn't sure whether to feel relieved or more anxious. Kayla had assured him it was safe, but her idea of safe was starting to feel a lot like temporary. "Are you sure this is the place?" Sam whispered as they approached the cabin. Kayla glanced back, her glowing eyes dimmer than usual. "It's the place. Stop asking." Sam tightened his grip on the backpack slung over his shoulder. The events of the last few days had left him jittery, and the eerie silence of the forest wasn't helping. "You didn't even knock," he muttered as Kayla pushed the door open. Inside, the cabin smelled of dust and something metallic. The dim light of a single bulb illuminated the room, revealing stacks of papers, tangled wires, and monitors humming faintly. A man sat in the center, hunched over a small device that looked suspiciously like a bomb. His hair was streaked with gray, and a jagged scar ran down one side of his face. "You're late," the man said without looking up. Kayla smirked. "You're still ugly." The man finally looked up, his eyes narrowing as he took in Sam. "And who's the human?" Sam bristled. "I'm standing right here." The man snorted. "Yeah, I see that. Question is, why?" "Because he's part of this now," Kayla said, stepping further into the room. "And because I need your help." The man leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "Help? From me? That's rich, coming from you." Kayla's smirk faded. "I don't have time for your ego, Garrett. The agency's onto us. They've upgraded their tech, and we barely escaped with our lives. If you want to sit here and sulk, fine, but don't pretend you don't care." Garrett stared at her for a long moment, then sighed and gestured to a pair of chairs. "Sit down and start talking." Sam hesitated, but Kayla plopped into a chair without a second thought. Reluctantly, he followed, his eyes darting between the two of them. "Who is this guy?" Sam asked finally. "And why do you trust him?" Garrett chuckled. "She doesn't, but I know enough about her to keep her honest." Kayla rolled her eyes. Garrett used to work for the agency, until he realized they were more interested in playing God than protecting humanity. "That's one way to put it," Garrett muttered, picking up a screwdriver and fiddling with the device on the table. "They're not protecting anyone. They're building weapons, controlling information, rewriting the rules of the universe to suit their agenda. And people like her," he nodded toward Kayla, "are just tools to them." Sam frowned. "So you left? Just like that?" Garrett's expression darkened. "Leaving wasn't easy, but I had help. Let's just say the agency didn't take kindly to me disappearing." Sam leaned forward. "So why are you helping us?" Garrett glanced at Kayla, then back at Sam. "Because I've seen what they're capable of. And because if she's running, it means they've crossed another line." Kayla nodded. "They're not just hunting me anymore. They've started using enhanced operatives, humans with stolen alien abilities. They're faster, stronger, and nearly impossible to stop." Garrett cursed under his breath. "That explains the chatter I've been picking up. They've ramped up their testing." Sam felt a chill run down his spine. "Testing? On people? People, aliens, anyone they can get their hands on," Garrett said grimly. "They don't care about collateral damage." Kayla leaned forward, her voice low. "We need to hit them where it hurts. Their research hub, the one in Sector 9. Garrett's eyes widened. "You're insane. That place is a fortress. Which is why we need you," Kayla said. "You know their systems, their protocols. You can get us in." "And then what?" Garrett shot back. "You think you can just waltz in and shut them down? They'll be waiting for you." Kayla's eyes glowed faintly, her confidence unshaken. "We don't need to shut them down completely, just long enough to destroy the main database. If we can erase their research, we can set them back years." Garrett looked unconvinced, but Sam spoke up. "If we don't do something, they'll keep coming after us, and more people will get hurt." Garrett sighed heavily, running a hand through his hair. "You're both crazy. But fine. I'll help. Just don't expect me to hold your hand." Kayla grinned. "Wouldn't dream of it." As Garrett began pulling up schematics on one of his monitors, Sam felt a flicker of hope. For the first time since this nightmare began, he had a sense of direction. But as Kayla leaned back, her eyes flickering with an unspoken worry, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something far worse. The final stand. The night was suffocatingly quiet as the trio crouched behind the dense undergrowth outside the agency's main facility. Sector 9 loomed in front of them, a labyrinth of towering walls, laser grids, and armed guards patrolling with unnerving precision. The cold metal of a stolen access card pressed against Sam's palm, and he wiped his clammy hand on his jeans. This place doesn't just scream fortress. It screams, "You're going to die if you try to break in," Sam muttered. Garrett shot him a dry look. "That's the spirit. Keep thinking like that, and we'll be fine." Kayla ignored them both, her glowing eyes scanning the area. Her shimmering skin had dulled to a muted gray, blending into the shadows. "The west entrance," she said, pointing to a service door partially hidden behind a stack of crates. "Minimal guards. That's our way in." Garrett frowned, tapping on a handheld device that displayed the facility's security systems. "You've got maybe 90 seconds before the next patrol cycles through. If you trip a single alarm, it's game over." Kayla smirked. "Good thing I don't make mistakes." Sam raised an eyebrow. "You're very confident for someone who got shot at, chased, and trapped in my apartment." Kayla gave him a sharp look. "And yet here we are. Follow me or don't. Your choice." Before Sam could respond, she darted toward the entrance, her movements so fluid it was as if she melted into the shadows. Garrett grumbled under his breath and followed, leaving Sam no choice but to scramble after them. The service door slid open with a soft hiss as Kayla pressed the stolen card against the scanner. The trio slipped inside, and Garrett immediately began disabling the camera feed using his device. 5 minutes, tops," Garrett said, his voice low. "That's all I can give you before they notice the system's been looped." Kayla nodded. "More than enough." Sam couldn't help but feel like he was the odd one out. Kayla moved with purpose, her glowing eyes scanning every corner, while Garrett's fingers flew over his device with practiced ease. Sam, on the other hand, felt like a civilian dropped into a war zone. "What exactly are we looking for?" Sam whispered as they crept through the dimly lit corridor. "The central server," Kayla replied without looking back. "It's where they store all their research. If we destroy it, we destroy years of work. And buy ourselves some time," Garrett added. Sam frowned. "What happens if we don't?" Kayla stopped, turning to face him. Her expression was uncharacteristically serious. "If we don't, they'll keep experimenting. On my kind, on humans, on anyone they can get their hands on. And the next time, they won't just be chasing me. They'll be controlling people like me." Sam swallowed hard, nodding. "Right, no pressure, then." They moved deeper into the facility, avoiding guards and slipping past surveillance drones. The place had an eerie clinical feel, sterile white walls, fluorescent lighting, and the faint hum of machinery. It felt like walking through the belly of a beast. Finally, they'd reached the server room. It was massive, rows of glowing blue towers stretching as far as the eye could see. Garrett immediately got to work, plugging his device into the nearest console. "This'll take a minute," he said. "I need to disable the failsafes before you can fry it." Kayla nodded and turned to Sam. "Keep watch. If anyone comes through that door, warn us." Sam nodded, gripping a small stun baton Garrett had handed him earlier. It felt woefully inadequate against the heavily armed guards he'd seen outside, but it was better than nothing. Minutes passed in tense silence, broken only by the soft beeping of Garrett's device. Then, just as Sam started to think they might actually pull this off, an alarm blared, the red emergency lights flooding the room. Garrett cursed. "They found the loop. We've got company." Kayla didn't hesitate. She stepped forward, her hands glowing with a bright blue light. "How much longer?" Garrett didn't look up. "I need 30 seconds." "You've got 10, Kayla said, turning toward the door as heavy footsteps echoed down the hallway. Sam's grip tightened on the baton. 10 seconds. What happens if they get here before that? Kayla glanced back, her glowing eyes fierce. Then we make sure they regret it. The first guard burst through the door, weapon raised, but Kayla was faster. A wave of energy shot from her hands, slamming into the guard and sending him flying into the wall. More followed, and Kayla moved like a force of nature, her powers cutting through the enemy like a storm. Sam watched in awe and terror. She was powerful, no doubt, but he could see the strain in her movements. Whatever she was doing, it was taking a toll on her. "Done," Garrett shouted, yanking his device from the console. "Light it up." Kayla raised her hands, her entire body glowing now. The air crackled with energy, and a deafening roar filled the room as the servers erupted in a shower of sparks and fire. The lights flickered, and the alarms went silent. "We need to go," Garrett yelled. Kayla staggered slightly, but she nodded. Sam grabbed her arm, helping her as they ran from the room. The facility was in chaos now, guards shouting and fires spreading. They sprinted through the corridors, dodging debris and barely avoiding capture. When they finally burst out into the night, Sam gasped for air, his lungs burning. Kayla collapsed to her knees, her glow fading, and Garrett stood over her, his expression grim. "That was close," Garrett said. "Too close." Kayla looked up, her eyes dull but determined. "It's not over." Sam stared at her. "What do you mean?" "We destroyed the server. Isn't that enough?" Kayla shook her head. "We slowed them down, but they'll rebuild, and next time, they'll be even stronger." Sam felt a sinking feeling in his chest. "So what now?" Kayla managed a weak smile. "Now we fight. And this time, we make sure they don't get back up." The chaotic resolution. The sky above the city was an ominous swirl of deep purple and orange, the air charged with energy that felt alive. Sam stood on the rooftop of an abandoned high-rise, the wind whipping at his face as he stared at the chaos unfolding below. The agency's forces had arrived in full strength, black-clad operatives, drones swarming like metallic wasps, and heavily armored vehicles rumbling through the streets. "This is madness," he muttered, gripping the railing tightly. "We can't win this." Kayla stepped beside him, her silver skin glowing faintly under the stormy sky. Her once playful smirk was replaced by a grim determination. "Winning isn't the goal," she said. "Not today." Sam turned to her, his frustration bubbling over. "Then what is?" "Dying gloriously. Because that's what this looks like." Kayla met his gaze, her glowing eyes steady. "The goal is to end this, to stop them from using what they've taken. If we can't destroy them, we'll make sure they can't rebuild." Garrett appeared behind them, clutching a small device that hummed ominously in his hand. "The EMP is ready," he said, his voice tight. "It'll fry every piece of tech within a 2-mile radius. Drones, their enhanced operatives, their entire communications network." "But," Sam interrupted, his voice sharp. "But what?" Garrett hesitated. "But it won't discriminate. Kayla's powers, her connection to the energy grid, it'll wipe her out too. At least temporarily." Sam felt like the wind had been knocked out of him. He turned to Kayla. "You knew this?" She nodded, her expression unreadable. "It's the only way. If we don't do this, they'll keep coming. They'll find new ways to control, to destroy. This is our chance to stop them." Sam shook his head. "There has to be another way. You can't just sacrifice yourself." Kayla's lips twitched into a faint smile. "I've been running for years, Sam, fighting to survive, to escape. But maybe it's time I stop running. Maybe it's time I fight for something bigger." Sam felt a lump rise in his throat. He had spent most of his life trying to avoid danger, to stay in his comfort zone. But now, standing on the brink of something so much larger than himself, he realized he couldn't let her face this alone. "Fine," he said, his voice shaking but firm. "But we do this together." Garrett rolled his eyes. "Touching. Really. But if you two are done with the heartfelt speeches, we've got about 5 minutes before their reinforcements arrive." Kayla stepped forward, taking the EMP device from Garrett. The energy in her hands crackled, merging with the device until it glowed with an intense, pulsating light. The storm above seemed to respond, thunder rumbling as the sky darkened further. Sam watched as she turned toward the edge of the rooftop. "Kayla, wait," he said, grabbing her arm. "Are you sure about this?" She looked at him, her eyes softening. "I'm sure. And I'll be okay. Eventually. Eventually." He echoed, but before he could say more, a deafening roar cut through the air. The drones had spotted them. A dozen metallic shapes descended rapidly, their weapons glowing with deadly intent. Kayla raised her free hand, a wave of energy bursting forth and scattering the drones like leaves in a gale. "Go," she shouted over her shoulder. "I'll hold them off." Sam hesitated, torn between running to safety and staying by her side. Garrett grabbed his arm, pulling him toward the stairwell. "If you stay, you'll just get in her way. Move." Reluctantly, Sam followed, his heart pounding as they descended the stairs. Behind them, the sound of battle raged on. Explosions, the hum of energy blasts, and Kayla's voice shouting in defiance. When they reached the street, Garrett stopped and turned to Sam. "We have to get to a safe distance before the EMP goes off. You want to help her. Make sure this works." Sam nodded, though every fiber of his being screamed to run back to Kayla. Together, they moved toward the perimeter, ducking behind debris as the agency's forces swarmed the area. Above, the storm reached its peak. Lightning crackled through the sky, and Kayla's silhouette stood defiantly against the chaos. She raised the EMP device high, her entire body glowing with an intensity that seemed to merge with the storm itself. Sam stopped and turned, his eyes locked on her. "Kayla," he shouted, but his voice was lost in the roar of thunder. And then, with a blinding flash and a sound like the world tearing apart, the EMP detonated. The wave of energy surged outward, rippling through the city. Drones dropped from the sky, their lights flickering out, vehicles stalled, their engines silent. Even the agency operatives fell to their knees, their enhanced suits sparking and failing. The storm began to dissipate, the oppressive energy in the air replaced by an eerie calm. Sam shielded his eyes, his ears ringing. When he looked up, Kayla was gone. "No," he whispered, his chest tightening. He ran back toward the building, ignoring Garrett's shouts to stop. The rooftop was empty, the EMP device shattered and sparking faintly. But there was no sign of Kayla. For a moment, despair threatened to overwhelm him. Then, faintly, he heard her voice in his mind. "I told you, Sam, this isn't the end." A small smile tugged at his lips as he looked toward the horizon. Somewhere out there, Kayla was still fighting, still surviving. And he knew one thing for certain: he wasn't done fighting either.